Hello there and welcome to Origins of Earth, where curiosity gets cozy.
And science takes the scenic route to wonder. Tonight, we're not looking at the ticking of clocks
Or the movement of stars, but at something much older, much quieter. And somehow still speaking across millennia. The pyramids, those silent giants of stone.
Resting beneath the sun and stars, as if waiting for a message to arrive.
You've seen them in pictures, maybe even walked among them. Their sharp edges against the endless sky. Their shadows stretching like sundials over the desert floor. And yet,
no matter how familiar they seem, there's always that feeling that they're holding something back.
Something deliberate, as if they weren't built simply to stand, but to say something. Maybe not to us, at least not originally. Maybe to someone or something else. Before we wander into their secrets, where are you listening from tonight?
Maybe you're somewhere far from sand and heat, wrapped in blankets.
or lying still in the quiet of your own room. Wherever you are. Take a moment to imagine the air of the Egyptian desert. Dry, soft, filled with the scent of dust and stone. Imagine standing there at twilight, when the heat fades and the sky cools to deep indigo. The pyramids rise out of the horizon, like thought made solid. They don't ask to be understood. They just are.
And that perhaps is part of their message. If this kind of slow exploration
Feels like a small refuge from the rush of your day, I'd be grateful. If you gave the video a like or maybe subscribed, it helps this quiet little corner of calm.
Reach more wanderers who enjoy falling asleep with the sound of questions.
Now settle in, breathe easy, and let's begin. 'Cause for all their silence,
The pyramids have never really stopped speaking. Out there in the desert,
The night moves differently. The air carries no moisture, no rustling trees, no hum of cities. It's a soundscape made of absence. When you stand among those stones,
you can almost hear your heartbeat echoing off them. The Great Pyramid at Giza.
it's nearly 5,000 years old, doesn't crumble under the weight of time. It hums. Not audibly, perhaps, but in the way presence hums. You can feel it through your bones.
That subtle vibration of something both enduring and intentional. When indigenous people first stood
before these massive structures, long before tourists and tour guides, long before the world even had the word ancient, they must have wondered.
what we still wonder now. Who are these for? And why this shape?
To call them tombs feels like calling the ocean a puddle. It explains something.
But not enough. The precision, the placement, the patience it took.
None of it matches the idea of a mere burial monument. You can't spend decades shaping millions of stones, aligning them to the stars, calculating angles so exact that even modern engineers study them just to hide a body. It's too grand.
Too careful, too mathematical,
It feels like a conversation written in a language.
We haven't quite remembered how to read. The more we learn about them,
the stranger they become. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, for instance,
once gleamed white under the sun, its limestone casings smooth and brilliant, like a beacon.
From miles away, it would have looked like a ray of light, solidified, the geometry of sunlight rising from the desert. If you were a traveler, coming from the Nile, that shining shape would greet you like a signal. Some say it was a symbol of resurrection, the stairway to the heavens.
Others whisper that it might have been something far more literal, a transmitter of sorts,
built to send a message, not through words or sounds, but through alignment.
Proportion and resonance. Imagine that idea for a moment, without rushing to decide if it's true or false. Suppose the pyramid was meant to communicate.
with its builder, gods, their ancestors, or even their creators.
Suppose each block of stone, each angle, each corridor was not random.
Or merely decorative, but functional, like parts of a machine.
Made not of metal, but of meaning. What would that mean for us now?
Thousands of years later, still receiving a signal we don't yet know how to decode?
When you stand at the base of the Great Pyramid, your sense of scale collapses. The blocks are taller than you. Each weighs tons, some as much as an elephant.
And there are more than 2 million of them. And yet, the joints between them are so tight.
You can barely slip a sheet of paper through. It's as if the builders understood stone. The way we understand code, as something that could carry information, store precision.
Under the stars, the alignment becomes clearer. The sides of the Great Pyramid are oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal directions.
North, south, east, and west, with an accuracy within a fraction of a degree.
This isn't coincidence. To achieve that, the builders would have needed not just labor, but astronomical knowledge, an understanding of Earth's rotation and the movement of the stars.
This means they weren't building blindly. They were synchronizing with something.
The question is, with what? There's an ancient line of thought that says architecture
is frozen music, that proportions can sing, that mathematics itself hums.
When arranged correctly. The pyramids seem to echo this. Their measurements contain ratios
found in natural systems. The circumference of Earth, the orbit of Mercury, even the constant pi, long before anyone officially defined it. Whether coincidence or design, the patterns repeat too cleanly to ignore. You start to wonder if the builders were encoding not just art or religion, but information about the universe itself.
A message not for their time, but for anyone, anywhere, who could someday understand.
If you imagine the world as it was then, with no engines, no cranes, no electricity, you start to see how extraordinary it was to attempt something of this magnitude
rise. But perhaps the goal wasn't purely physical. Maybe the pyramid wasn't built to reach the gods,
but to reach through them. A bridge between the material and the immaterial.
Between creation and the creators. When you think of it that way,
the effort begins to make more sense. You don't build forever monuments just to last.
You build them to be heard. Night settles over Giza like velvet.
The stars sharpen above the horizon, and the temperature drops so quickly. You can feel the desert breathe. In that stillness, the pyramids almost seem alive, like they're waiting for someone to speak first. East Asian archaeologists and historians study their chambers,
their passages, the patterns carved into their walls, searching for practical explanations. Burial rituals, astronomical markers, mathematical exercises. But there's another possibility, one that science and myth both hesitate to claim. What if these structures weren't messages to gods, but to makers? A way for the created to speak back
to the source. Civilizations all over the world share this impulse to build.
To reach upward, to align with the sky. It's as if humanity, in every era,
has felt an invisible thread tugging at them, urging them to send something back along it.
From the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the step pyramids of Mesoamerica.
That shape wide at the base, tapering to a point, keeps returning. It's not just practical engineering.
It's symbolic geometry. It's how we draw, the act of connection itself.
The pyramid shape is stability, reaching for transcendence. Earth's heavy hand,
stretching toward the infinite. There's something deeply human about that.
Even without alien theories or lost technologies, the act itself carries a kind of communication.
The message might be as simple as we are here. Or maybe we understand.
It's the same sentiment we send into space today with golden records and radio waves.
Hoping someone might hear. The pyramids might have been the first version of that impulse.
A planetary broadcast written in stone. Inside, the air changes.
The corridors are narrow, the light dim, and every sound feels amplified.
Some researchers have noted how the chambers resonate at specific frequencies.
Especially the king's chamber. A low hum, an almost musical vibration emerges.
When sound bounces between the granite walls. It's subtle, but measurable.
Could it be coincidence? Maybe. But sound has always been sacred in ancient cultures. Words created worlds in their myths. Vibrations held power. And here,
deep within tons of stone, a human voice could merge with the structure itself.
Is becoming part of something vast. Perhaps the Caucasian builders knew that.
And designed the pyramid not just as a resting place, but as a resonator.
A kind of instrument meant to carry intention beyond ordinary reach. You can picture the ritual. Torches flickering, air thick with dust.
Voices chanting deep in the chamber, the sound growing fuller, merging with the stone.
Until the whole structure seems to breathe,
To those who built it, that vibration might have been the message, the moment when human sound met.
It didn't need words. It was communion through frequency, meaning through resonance. And above it all, the stars. Ancient Egyptians didn't just see stars as lights.
They saw them as living entities, places of the afterlife, homes of gods and ancestors.
Their entire burial and temple system was aligned with the heavens, because to them,
the sky wasn't far away. It was the continuation of Earth. The pyramids
point upward, not only physically, but conceptually directing the soul's journey. If they believed their kings became stars after death, then perhaps these monumental forms
were the launch pads, the transmitters, sending the spirit and the message it carried into the cosmic beyond. When you look at it through that lens,
the phrase built to communicate with their creators starts to sound less like science fiction
and more like ancient psychology. These were people asking the same questions we still ask.
who made us? Why are we here? Are we alone? They didn't have telescopes or satellites.
So they used what they had, stone, sweat, and geometry, to reach for answers.
In doing so, they left behind monuments that still whisper those same questions back to us.
The air in the desert grows cold as night deepens, and you can almost imagine
that the stars themselves are answering. Their light, after all, is ancient.
When you see Orion's belt hanging above the horizon, the same 3 stars.
The pyramids were aligned to, you're seeing light that left its source thousands of years ago.
It's entirely possible that the builders of Giza looked up at that same glow and wondered if they were being watched in return. The symmetry is haunting. The pyramids mirror the stars. The stars mirror the pyramids. And between them lies East Asian humanity listening. For generations, people have searched for meaning in that mirroring.
Maybe it's symbolic, maybe intentional, but it feels like something more than coincidence.
When the layout of Earth's greatest monuments matches the shape of the heavens above.
To some, that's evidence of divine design. To others, it's proof of human genius.
The ability to replicate the universe in miniature. Either way, the result is the same.
A bridge between the mortal and the cosmic. A structure that doesn't just point upward,
but participates in the sky's geometry. That's what makes the pyramids so endlessly fascinating. They exist at the border of myth and mathematics, spirituality and engineering.
You can study them scientifically and still feel their mystery pressing quietly.
At the edge of comprehension, you can calculate their proportions and still find yourself
asking why they feel alive.
Every measurement leads to another question. Every explanation opens a deeper one. Some nights when wind moves through the desert, people say it carries a low hum, a sound that seems to come from the stones themselves.
It's probably just the way air moves between their gaps. But if you let yourself listen differently, it's easy to imagine it as something else. A faint, ongoing signal.
The pyramid still speaking patiently to whomever was meant to listen. Maybe that's us.
Maybe we were always meant to decode their silence. Or maybe we already are.
Just slowly, as science and imagination catch up to what they left behind.
And so the story unfolds, stone by stone, theory by theory, beneath a sky
that has never stopped listening. The sand shifts, the stars burn on.
And those great pyramids continue to hold their quiet vigil, waiting as if for a response
that might yet arrive. Long before the first pyramid rose from the desert.
Long before anyone thought to carve stone into the shape of a mountain. Humans were already looking up. It seems to be one of the oldest instincts we have.
To lift our gaze toward the sky, to watch clouds drift, to trace the path of the sun
as it climbs and falls. Somewhere in the act of looking, wonder began. And with wonder came a question that never quite left us. If we are down here, who or what might be up there? The ancient Egyptians weren't the first to build toward that question, but they might have done it most beautifully. Yet their impulse
didn't appear from nowhere. It was part of a long lineage of reaching. Every early culture that settled long enough to build anything began stacking, piling, shaping matter upward. Mud, brick, stones, wood, whatever they had. The result was always the same. A rising form that seemed to point towards something unseen.
It's tempting to think they were just being practical, building high to see further.
Or to honor their rulers. But when you study how these structures line up with the sky,
the pattern becomes harder to ignore. These weren't just fortresses or tombs. They were extensions of thought itself. Humans have always been fascinated by height.
From cliffs and volcanoes to mountain peaks and clouds, vertical space seems to carry
a kind of authority. It represents the unknown, the unreachable, the divine.
The higher something is, the closer it feels to mystery. When people first started building
permanent structures, and it wasn't enough to just live inside them. They wanted those structures.
To gesture upward, to echo that instinct. You can see it in ziggurats, in temple towers.
In the stepped platforms that dotted Mesopotamia long before the pyramids appeared. Each one a physical prayer, rising layer by layer, as if human effort could shorten
the distance between the ground and the gods. But the Egyptians took that impulse
and refined it into something timeless. Their early versions, the mustabas, were simple.
Rectangular tombs. Then came the step pyramid of Djoser, a stack of those rectangles.
Built one atop another. The design feels experimental, like someone testing
how far upward the earth itself could stretch. Over generations, the shape evolved. Smooth sides replacing steps, precision replacing roughness, until the Great Pyramid emerged. A geometry so balanced that it feels less like construction and more like discovery.
As if the shape was waiting there all along, and humanity finally remembered how to uncover it.
Some anthropologists argue that this drive to build upward isn't about religion at all, but about survival and perception. From a high point, you can see danger approaching.
You can watch the river, the herds of wildebeest, the horizon. But that explanation feels incomplete. There's a difference between climbing a hill for safety and hauling millions of limestone blocks
into perfect alignment with the stars. One is instinct, the other is intention. And intention suggests communication. In every era, reaching up has been a kind of signal. Fire towers, smoke columns, church spires, rocket launches, they all share the same basic grammar. Something rises, something is sent, something is received. When ancient Egyptians built their pyramids, perhaps they were participating in that same eternal syntax. Using stone instead of smoke, geometry instead of flame. The pyramid was their broadcast.
Sent, not in light or sound, but in form. Its message was endurance, its language proportion, its audience unknown. When you think about the sheer persistence of these monuments, the metaphor becomes literal. They have outlasted empires, floods, invasions, and even the memory of their own makers. They've continued standing,
while languages vanished and continents reshaped. If that's not communication, what is? Maybe endurance itself was the message to say we were here and we could shape the world.
To prove perhaps to whatever powers they believe created them, that they too could create.
There's a quiet irony in that idea. The pyramids might have been built as messages to gods.
Or creators, but they've ended up speaking most clearly to us. They're reminders.
That humanity's first and strongest language isn't words. It's pattern, structure.
The urge to make meaning visible. Every culture builds something that points toward the sky.
But not every culture does it with such deliberate mathematics. The Egyptians measured and measured again, aligning their work to the cardinal directions so precisely
that even today, satellites marvel at it. It's almost as if they weren't building for the gods,
but with them, as if they saw themselves as participants in creation rather than its spectators. To understand why, you have to imagine their worldview. To the ancient Egyptians, the gods weren't distant deities floating somewhere above the clouds. They were woven into everything: the river, the stars, the cycles of day and night. Their myth of creation began.
Not with light, but with balance. Out of chaos emerged order, and that order
was maintained through harmony. Every action, every ritual, every structure had to reflect that cosmic symmetry. Building upward wasn't about defiance. It was about alignment. The pyramid, in its perfection, wasn't a challenge to the divine.
It was a collaboration. When you walk around the base of the Great Pyramid,
you can feel that order in your body. Every side faces almost exactly true north.
South, east, and west. The corners are so square that you'd think they were drawn by machines.
Yet they were shaped by hand. The slope of the sides, about 51 degrees,
forms a ratio that corresponds beautifully with certain mathematical constants.